In 2015, when Uganda held the presidency of the UN General Assembly, 193 member states adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its associated 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. At the heart of the SDGs was a pledge to leave no one behind and to reach the farthest first.
During the period of the 69th session of the United Nations General Assembly, the UN member states have finally agreed on the all-important SDGs, 17 of them. The convergence of analysis and solutions, the convergence of diagnosis and prescription is a landmark in the history of mankind.
Member states all over the globe committed not only to reducing poverty, but also eradicating extreme poverty and hunger, to combat inequality, to fight climate change, to ensure gender equality, and to ensure universal access to quality healthcare and universal education, with human rights of all people at the front and center. Since the adoption of the SDGs, the government has implemented an inclusive process to ensure that the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs are owned by the people and are localized.
At the heart of the 2030 Agenda was a pledge to leave no one behind. It meant that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and targets should be met for everyone, with a particular focus on the poorest, most vulnerable, and further behind, people who indeed are often left out.
Institutional delivery of the SDGs is guided by a multi-stakeholder national SDG coordination framework, which is executed through 5 multi-stakeholders technical working groups to facilitate integration and alignment of national development frameworks to the SDGs. Production of data and statistics, financing and resource mobilization for SDGs, communication and popularization of SDGs, coordination, monitoring and reporting progress on the implementation of SDGs. In 2018, the government of Uganda, with support from the United Nations, launched the country's first national SDGs roadmap 2018-2020. This was developed to operationalize the national SDG coordination framework, which was established in 2016 at the start of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its associated 17 Sustainable Development Goals. In 2019, the government of Uganda, in partnership with the UN country team, established the SDG Secretariat, which has not only strengthened coordination among ministries, departments and agencies, but also collaboration with the civil society organizations, the private sector, academia and the United Nations, and localization of SDGs in local governments. Following the expiration of the SDG roadmap in 2020, the government of Uganda, with support from UNDP, undertook a consultative process, developed a new SDG roadmap to guide SDG implementation from 2020-2021 to 2024-25. This SDG roadmap is aligned to the 3rd National Development Plan, which runs for the same period.
The government of Uganda has continuously instituted several reforms targeted at delivering on the implementation of the SDGs by 2030.
Since 2016, several milestones have been achieved. These include translation of the SDGs into 13 local languages, an increase in number of SDG indicators with available data from 41 in 2016 to 119 in 2022. The government is also setting up a national SDG monitoring and reporting system to enhance data analytics and dissemination. Uganda's 3rd National Development Plan is at least 90% aligned to the SDGs. In July 2020, government presented Uganda's 2nd voluntary national review report to the UN High-Level Political Forum and is scheduled to schedule the 3rd report next year in 2023. District local governments have also been continuously engaged to implement local initiatives, including local financing initiatives to support implementation of SDGs and voluntary local reviews conducted in 10 districts so far. The government continues to work with different partners and stakeholders in the quest to achieve the SDGs. In 2020, the government approved the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, which highlights strategies and contributions of the United Nations to the implementation of the Third National Development Plan and the SDGs up to 2025. With government working with civil society organizations on the localizations of the SDGs, several campaigns have been launched such as Tonde Kamabega. In addition, the SDG private sector platform was launched in 2021 to mobilize the private sector players to not only support implementation but also to leverage and benefit from the SDGs. The Youth Coalition for SDGs has played a role in raising awareness about the SDGs and mobilizing young people as agents of change towards the world we want. After the adoption of the 2030 Agenda and even with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, Uganda continues to see promising progress on most of the SDGs. Thanks to all Ugandans and partners who supported and stood with the government of Uganda during this time. Before the COVID-19 outbreak, the economy had registered strong recovery and was projected to grow at 6.0% in 2019-2020. The poverty level has reduced slightly from 21.4% in the 2017 to 20.3% in 2020, with a decrease in the total number of poor persons from 7.1 million to 7 million in the same period. A resilient health system that has, for instance, been able to withstand and manage the shocks of COVID-19, continued progress on gender equality and women empowerment as evinced from the women participation and representation in local governments, parliament and cabinet. Electricity access rate from 14.5% in 2015 to 28% in 2021 due to increased generation capacity and rural electrification programs as a means of accelerating efforts of increased access to clean energy. The government continues to implement poverty reduction and employment creation programs by supporting women-led businesses, youth livelihood programs and Emioga, in addition to social protection programs for the elderly. Increases in proportion of national paved roads from 80% in 2017 to 93% in 2020. Number of people covered by a mobile network by technology from 20.2 million in 2015 to 25.6 million in 2020. Although the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed sustainable development challenges, the outlook is positive. Uganda's resolve to achieve the SDGs remains unshaken. Our path to recovery from COVID-19 must and will be aligned to our SDG journey. As we continue on this collective journey, we commit to our promise to the people of Uganda and to the planet. No one will be left behind.
As government, we also recognize that more work needs to be done in order to meet the set 2030 targets. In particular, there is need to actively involve more Ugandans in the planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting on SDG interventions, so that communities are not merely beneficiaries but active participants in the process.